Hi, Lillian. Thank you so much for joining in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. What about you?
Yeah, doing great. Thank you so much. Super excited to have a conversation with you regarding the topic, which is digital education. So, before we get to the topic, I'd love to know more about you, how you end up being like a broadcaster and running that for like over 2 decades.
Well, one of the reasons why I got involved in radio was I'm also an author. And my first book was a nonfiction book
Yeah,
talking about teenagers and their behavior, whether you were married or single or grandparent. Behavior hasn't changed since we've come down from the trees.
yeah,
So I thought people could use a little help. I certainly could. And as a result, my publisher put me on a tour of all the New York, New Jersey, down south, up north, and out west radio stations and TV stations. And one of the things I noticed immediately was that unless you had a name, a big name,
yeah,
you are not going to be allowed to come on the airwaves to talk about something that's important to you unless the media recognize that you were important enough to get them on the airwaves in the first place. And that really bothered me.
yeah,
It reminded me of something my dad once told me. He said, yes, the secretaries, they do all the work. That's true, but we're the brain power. And I'm thinking, yeah, but a lot of these secretaries offer their bosses a lot of their original ideas,
mm,
just the way a college professor will steal content from a college students' paper as long as they're an undergraduate. It gives them the legal right to take the material that you spent months researching
yeah,
and use it and add it to their own doctoral thesis, which I thought was rather nasty considering the student never got any credit. And to my mind side, people needed to be given credit for who they are
yeah.
because it's the masses, or I could use serfs, or I could say slave, however you want to put it. It's us little busy worker bees who are keeping everything going forward. And I really felt compelled to get these people's voices and stories heard. And that's why I set up the station.
That's great. And like it's been a quite long time, right? Like since you've been doing that.
I set it up in December of 2005. And to let everybody know, nobody knew who I was. I
Right.
think the first 6 months was the quietest, nobody really showing up.
Mm,
And then I started bringing in guests in addition to myself.
yeah,
And that started to make the difference because I would try to seek out people who had stories to tell,
yeah.
information to share, but most importantly, how to be prepared just in case something happens. And I started to matriculate a following.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, let's get into like today's topic, which would be like a digital education. So yeah, I know like you wanted to talk about regarding this topic. So tell us a little bit about like what is digital education and then we can go from there.
Certainly. I have a friend who lives down in Georgia. It's
Right.
not Atlanta. I forget the name of her city. Please forgive me. But it's not Atlanta. And she was telling me that a lot of the kids in the school system were not digitally competent
Mm,
as much as the kids who live in the major cities like Atlanta, for example,
right.
or New York, or
Yeah.
San Francisco, and even LA. And that these kids were falling behind because I know from my grandchildren that tablets are now provided by the school district, and the kids are expected to use those tablets. During the pandemic, that's how they got together with their teachers, but
Yeah.
they now use it for basic research and how to use it properly. So these kids were at a loss. So I said, well, how about if I come down and teach them the basics of podcasting?
Yeah.
So at least they'll have the opportunity to build on what I give them. And hopefully there's some community centers who have the equipment. I know the library does.
Yeah.
And they can go in and at least practice what they learn so that they will be competitive, not just to the kids in the States, but overseas. And then I found out that, gee, it's not just in the United States that's experiencing this divide, it's all over the world. So it's the rich versus poor
Yeah.
all over again. Unfortunately for these kids, though, they can't afford not to learn how to use computers or audio equipment or
Mm.
video equipment because that is what their future
Yeah.
and their job future is going to be based on.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at like so many people are like struggling not getting like them kind of education they desire, and education is getting expensive, especially in the States, right? uh
Very, very expensive.
yeah.
And people have to understand it's more than arithmetic, writing, and reading.
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand the math that goes into the codes
Mm.
to write the programs, and there are different types of programs, just the way there's different types of books, fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah.
And if you're doing coding for serious software, you need to know your basic math.
Yeah.
You need to have your basic writing skills. It sends chills up my back to know that more than half this country really do not know how to read
Mm.
or be able to do basic math. And the fact is, folks, if you can't do addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division mentally, you're going to have trouble with your computer.
Yeah. Yeah, so true that. And right now like what we see in the job market wise, like they're hiring people on a new skill set, like programming, software developing, like antivirus creating. They're all like going on the internet based things. And the matter of fact, like on our education system, even though in UK and US, like they're not teaching enough on the school level or like a college level. You have to choose like a graduation for like a IT, but that's supposed to be like a basic, like them kind of things. Like this is really important for like getting a job, because all of them jobs you need like a basic skills on a IT especially. And so how we can tackle that within digital education, like coming generation they can adapt with the new skill set.
Well, I think that it has to be done not on a federal level because I think that would help, but it really has to do a lot with parents
Mm.
and grandparents because these are the people who are influencing the children before they set off to school.
Right.
And if your parents or your grandparents do not put a great value, or should I say investment,
Yeah.
on securing a basic education, then you are not going to see the necessity of going out and learning. As I tell my grandson, not all learning is going to be fun. It's
Yeah.
going to be, oh God, do I have to do this? Or, ah, but the problem is that you have to realize it's not so much the immediate future, but your distant future.
Yeah.
Now, nobody ever told me this when I was growing up. I was brought up to be, as they say, pregnant and barefoot. So, and be behind my husband 100%, stay home, take care of the kids.
Yeah.
Everybody's familiar with it, but somebody's got to do it. However, it's broadened up since then, and there are more opportunities, but these opportunities are not trickling down to the poor neighborhoods or to the inner cities or to the kids out in the country because either their culture doesn't encourage women or children to be taught any further than a particular age group,
Yeah.
or their society does not deem it important for them to know it. I can only speak from the United States. I do not believe that you have to have the poor always with you.
Yeah.
I believe that everybody should have the opportunity not only to learn it, but to put it into practical application. Because if you do not put that which you are taught into your experience, you will never master the skill set. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. It is an important skill set you need into like them kind of environment right now we are in. Is more by education, right? Like doing a podcasting, whatever in there, like creating a content on the YouTube, like a social media platform. Like you need to have like kind of basic knowledge doing things like even though editing the video, editing the audio. You need to do at the beginning. Then obviously, you're broadcasting when you started. It's not easy to start something like right now. Probably you have like a team of people, they editing and everything, they managing all sorts of things. But when you're starting out your own business, starting out some new career, you have to do all of them basic ground up, then you can pass it on to someone else.
There's a lot of things involved with just podcasting.
Yeah.
It's more than picking up a microphone, getting some equipment, investing in some streaming apps. You have to know basically how to read,
Yeah.
write, follow instructions, details, presentation, and most importantly, research. Even
Yeah.
before you put your podcast together and you don't want to go into a company or make it into a LLC, how many people raise your hands that you can make it into an S Corp? What's an
Mm.
S Corp? That's an individual who is not a corporation per se, but they're protected under law, which means that whatever they earn as a single individual is added to their home income. But you are protected because nobody can come and put a lien against you and your company if you owe credit.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people never even, oh, I'm on the air and I do ABC. Well, what happens if somebody comes around and they have a copyright issue with you? What? Or what happens if they feel like you're inciting the masses to a riot? I said, it's one thing if you're president of the United States, but if you're
Yeah.
Joe Blow in hometown Mississippi and you say something inflammatory on the radio,
Mm.
somebody who's listening to you who may have gotten in trouble says, well, I would never have thought about it, but John Blow on Kill says it's okay for me to go out and do that.
Yeah.
So you need to put in a disclaimer
Yeah.
to protect yourself. Very few people really don't understand there's more than just picking a topic, which is important, but it's your voice tone.
Mm.
Now, if maybe the former president had used a conciliatory tone when he addressed the crowd back in January 6th, perhaps they wouldn't have stormed the White House. You don't know.
Yeah.
But it's your voice tone, folks. That's your body language. People can't see you, but they can hear you. And you need to teach that to kids
Yeah.
or to teens or other adults, because what you say and how you say it and what tone of voice, what pitch you're using can determine how people receive it.
Yeah.
Are you talking with them, at them, below them? So it's just more than picking up a microphone saying, hi, this is Joe Blow, and we're talking about sports. I look at the gentleman who got caught gambling on sports. and he was a professional sports player, and he got slammed for it.
Yeah.
So you need to take a lot of these things into consideration, and a lot of these things come along with basic training
Yeah.
for what you need to learn how to do. And then I know everybody hates this word, but you need to practice.
Yeah.
And you need to practice in front of a mirror, which I know most people can't stand doing. They just look at mirrors and see how pretty they are, or
Yeah.
how handsome or macho they are. But if you practice in front of a mirror, you'll catch everything.
Mm,
And that's the idea. You need to enunciate. I've heard a lot of podcasters, their pronunciation is terrible. If you hear the words like and, you'll
yeah.
probably run out the door. These are things that are so much a part of our language and our behavior that people don't take a good look at it. And yet, when I'm with a bunch of kids, I have them practice this. Well, give me a happy tone. Give me a sad tone. Give me an angry tone. Give me a petulant tone, because I want them to begin to hear the difference
Yeah.
of what their voice sounds like. Because when you hear yourself speak, you sound wonderful. But listen to yourself on a tape recorder or the new recorders they have, the virtual recorders,
Yeah.
and you're going to listen to your voice and say, "That's not me. I don't talk like that."
So
But you
true.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. And this comes like with the self-awareness, right? You have to know
Yes.
like what you're actually doing and just find a way to improve yourself. Like we always think like we are perfect. We don't need to learn anything. We not need any kind of education. But it's not actually true. There is so much room for like growth. Even though myself, I'm learning every single day, learning from yourself, learning from my guest, listening to other people podcasts, how they interview, how they ask them questions, how they have their tones and everything, how they say things. So there is so many things. Like even though you have to be like a good listener yourself, right? If the guest talking and you have no clue what's going on, you have to be present as well. Like if you're talking and I'm thinking about something else, like how am I gonna day be like tomorrow, then obviously I'm gonna be miss my point and I wouldn't know like what question to be asked next. So we actually like even the podcaster, like we can use an example. There is so many podcasts that they say like why we can't grow, why we can't get more listeners and everything, but they don't review themselves like what they needs to be improved on. So even though we do have like about 17 years of experiences, like a radio show, podcasting, what tips do you give like someone like a new starting out podcast or like get into like a radio kind of thing or like being a content creator in general?
Well, one of the first things you need to consider is your topic.
Okay.
Go ask your friends. Go ask your parents, family,
Yeah.
and find out what is really near and dear to them.
Hmm.
And if you're an older person who's doing podcasting, unless you're going to be doing topics that are going to be of interest to your generation, I suggest you find out what the younger generation wants to hear about. Because generation X, Y, and Z is not like the baby boomer generation at all. They were
Yeah.
brought up in different circumstances. Society was different, and the behavior in some things was also different. I take a look at my grandkids, and if they weren't my grandkids, I would have a lot of work to
Yeah.
do in order to really relate to them. I'm a 50s kid. They were born in the 2000 era. Big difference. And you have to recognize that.
Hmm.
So once you have your topic, you have to narrow it down
Right.
to the nth degree. Well, you just can't talk about parents. There's all kinds of things about parents. You go on the internet, look it up on Google, and you get 30 pages of just different things that parents are involved in. So you need to narrow it down. And then when you finally narrow it down, then you have to think of a really fantastic grab by the throat title to get people to at least want to hear what you have to say.
That's great. Yeah. And obviously like a consistency the main thing, right?
Yes,
Lot of people give up.
consistency. You have to be stubborn. I'm the
Yeah.
type of person that I fall down, I get back on my feet, I brush my knees off, I take the criticisms to heart, and I use the criticisms to go and do a better job for the next one. And I usually tell people you need to do at least the first three,
Yeah.
put them together. And I said, make sure whatever intro you use in the first one, you carry it down to the second one and you carry it to the third one. Tip, your intro shouldn't be any longer than 15, 20 seconds at most, because people don't care what you have to say when you're introducing. So, for example, welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio, a subsidiary of Global Media Network. Our motto is educate, enlighten, entertain. And today's show on Cool Your Heels with Elizabeth Caldwell is, that's it. That's all they need to know.
Yeah.
When a guest sends you their biography and asks you to give the 30-minute introduction, have them put it on social media so people can read it.
Yeah.
They're here to hear what they have to say. Yes, they know he's an expert. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on your show, right? You're not going to get somebody who's not an expert, not a
True.
professional on your show, unless your show is about unsung heroes, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need all that information. So just have, welcome to the show, Dr. David Doolittle. He talks to the animals. Let's find out how he does it. That's all you need to say.
Yeah.
You need to use your podcast the way you see newspaper articles written. All verbs,
It's true.
nouns and verbs. You don't want any adjectives. You don't want any adverbs. And if you do, use them sparingly. If you're an author or a writer, blog person, you know this is how things are done in the written world.
Mm.
And all you're doing is taking words, instead of being written or text, they're coming out as an audio.
Yeah.
So you want to hold on to your listeners' attention.
Yeah. I used to do the same thing, like you mentioned, the mistake was like I used to do like a 3 4 minutes introduction of my guest. And last, well, 50 episode what I've been doing is similar to like you said, like welcome to the Russell show. Today we have a special guest. Giving example is Lillian. She is an expert, not only expert, like today we're gonna share about like a digital course. This is our
Right.
topic and gonna learn more about. Let's dive in. So I'll keep in like a short, like a 1 minute altogether, and then on description of the podcast, then I can talk about who she is, what her achievements are, and everything in detail that they can read it. If they want to read it, they can check out the website and everything in there anyway. So that makes it like a hook really, really well. Before, like it wouldn't get like so many downloads. But right now, doing that, like people are more curious, going actual show and listening to the whole thing. Yeah.
It's like a serial, folks, on TV. If
Yeah.
you pay attention to some of the serials, pay attention how they set up the ending.
Mm.
It's the ending, folks, that are going to get you to come back for next week's episode. Well, you don't have a video to say, and this is what's happening. So you can say, our next guest, our upcoming guest is blue, blue, blue. Why I stormed the White House. That's all you need to say. I
Yeah.
guarantee you half the nation will be over listening to that podcast to hear from somebody's lips why they stormed the White House.
Right. Yeah.
And that's how you position yourself for the next podcast coming on. I tell them it's like Legos. You take a basic brick and then you start building on top of it.
Yeah, that's great. Another tips I learned from you. That's great. Normally I don't do that, so I can put some kind of 1 minute video, like 1 minute recording, and just upload it end of the podcast, so they can know like what episode they can expect next. So I'm uploading like a one episode a day right now on my podcast because I'm seeing the growth, and yeah, that'll be like great, so people can know like what's going on tomorrow.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
what you can do for further information, and then give the contact info or URL for the guy or something,
Yeah.
or, offer a transcript for $1.99 or something and have all his titles and awards and praises and everything else that he feels is near and dear to him, and
Yeah.
make it available as a PDF for people who really want to learn more about this particular person.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Totally love that. So yeah, Lillian, we're coming to the end of this podcast. It was a great having a show with you, having a discussion, and learning so much things from you as well with your great experiences. So yeah, those who's listening, if anyone wants to learn more about you, your business, where's the best place to find you?
They can find me at https:// passionate world talk radio.com.
Okay, thank you so much. So I wish you best of luck with your rest of the year and your business and personal life as well. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you very much. You too.
Most welcome. Thank you. So that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I hope you can find Lillian, go visit her website and check out stuff. And if anyone wants to listen to our show, also you can check out on her website as well. So yeah, until then, talk to you in the next episode. Thank you.